Hi, welcome to the Celebration of Wisdom series. My name is Mae Weghorst, and I'm here with Dr. Zelda Okia to talk to her about her career and life experiences. If you'd like to introduce yourself and just kind of give a brief description of what you do and your career.
Sure. Yes, as you said, so I'm Dr. Zelda Okia, and I am a forensic pathologist. I am also a life and weight loss coach. So, as a forensic pathologist, I perform autopsies to determine why someone has died. And as a life and weight loss coach, I work with my clients to help them to discover what is most important in their life and how they can go about creating the life of their dreams. Because my ultimate goal is to help people not end up on my autopsy table.
That's a good goal. You described the two different areas that you work in, the forensic pathologist and the life and weight loss coach. Which of these did you start with? And just kind of how did you get on the path to having these two very different careers?
So I went to medical school. So I went straight out of college and I was a biology major in college. So when I went to medical school, I wasn't really sure what I was going to specialize in. I thought I'd do family practice and I liked psychiatry and I liked surgery. And I found pathology to be the one that I think was more in line with my personality. And so I did hospital pathology for about 8 years, which was very similar to biology. I was looking in the microscope, I was handling organs and biopsies that would come down from the OR. In the '08 and '09, when everything kind of blew up, I was in Milwaukee and I wanted to stay in the area. And it so happened that at the medical examiner's office, they had an opening and I thought it would be similar to the hospital pathology. And I was quite surprised how different it was. But I ended up doing forensic pathology. And whereas with hospital pathology, I was sitting a lot and looking in the microscope, in forensics, I was predominantly doing autopsies. So that was very different. And then the coaching came about because I don't know if I was starting to get a little burnt out, probably was some burnout. And I started to think about what else was available to me, what else could I do. So I think just through looking at different opportunities that were available to me, I did find out about coaching and life coaching. And then it was a question of where do I want to really train in coaching? Because there was something that really resonated with me. And what happened is I found my mentor coach. I found her podcast, actually. I'd written a book about drug overdose deaths. And I think that really is what started me on the journey of wanting to have a bigger impact. I obviously had impact with the deaths and with the families, but I think I wanted to say, how can I have an impact before, like forensics and on my autopsy table is kind of the end of the line. And so I said, could I have a greater impact working with live people? And so that's how I got involved and interested in coaching. My mentor coach was also a weight loss coach. And like I said, prior to going into forensics, I was doing hospital pathology where I was sitting for a long period of time looking in a microscope. And so I started to gain weight. And then I developed a herniated disc. I had to have back surgery. And that was when I realized that I needed to make a change, that this sedentary lifestyle was not working for me anymore. But I was able to lose weight. I lost 30 pounds. So that is how I got involved in being a weight loss coach. And the big factor in that was the life coaching aspect of it, really starting to understand my own behaviors around the choices that I made in terms of what I put in my mouth.
I feel like a big part of trying to have a better life and trying to lose weight is your mindset. And I was wondering if there was kind of a eureka moment or just something that shifted your perspective on how you lead your life.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, losing weight wasn't as much of a struggle. The struggle was and continues to be learning a different perspective. So it's interesting. I'm on a journey of an entrepreneur. I have worked on developing this into a business. I was a little surprised when I started to put myself out there that I would offer my services to people, and many people said no. And it reminded me years ago, I had done Amway, which is a multi level marketing program. And I remember having to walk up to people, total strangers, and ask them if they were looking for a new opportunity or something like that. And that was really difficult. Being a forensic pathologist, I'm totally behind the scenes. I mean, even as a pathologist, most people, they're not expecting, to talk to the pathologist. It's like, well, the surgeon, he's the one that diagnosed my tumor. And I'm like, yeah, no. So it's interesting that I did choose pathology, and with forensics, I'm totally in the back. It's been an interesting journey for me because I didn't realize that I had hesitation, fear around approaching people. I had never had to do that before. I've done a lot of work around the concept of my identity. And one thing that I found is when I thought about why was it not as hard to lose the weight, because so many of my clients really struggle with their weight. I was thin for the majority of my life. I was thin up until my mid 30s. So I knew how to be thin. I knew how to operate as a thin person in the world. And so I think that once I lost the weight, it was becoming kind of going back, revisiting an identity that was familiar. And I think, particularly for clients who've been overweight maybe their whole life, there's a lot of built up beliefs about how this works. And so you're having to introduce new beliefs. Your brain starts to question, like, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? And so the interesting thing is that when I put on the identity of an entrepreneur, that was brand new. And so this idea around identity and putting on new identity and calming your brain, calming your nervous system to where it will allow you to implant new beliefs. And when that belief system is so strong, it fights it.
I think that your mindset to grow is often tied to your physical form too, because your body reacts to different things physically as well as mentally. What often are the types of responses you get from people who you're helping that are maybe not fully on board at first? Is there a common reason other than what you described of just being adverse to the unfamiliarity?
I think everything boils down to beliefs. They may not believe in me that I can help them. They may not believe that it's possible, or they may not believe that they can do it. So many times it's a lack of belief in themselves, really, that they can stick to it, which then goes back to the past. And so one of the things that my mentor coach always used to say, it's a good thing that as babies, we didn't have a past that was telling us that we could never walk. So that allowed us the freedom to explore what it's like to stand on 2 feet. So this is another thing that I'm getting into, is the concept of letting go. Not just letting go of old beliefs, but even letting go of identity. So if I get an objection, a money objection, let's say, oh, wow, that's so expensive. Well, do I believe that it's worth it? But I've seen some coaches who are like initially shocked. Oh, I have to pay $6,000 or $10,000 to coach with you, who then end up growing multi 6-figure, 7-figure coaching businesses. But they had to get over that belief that keeping $6,000 is more valuable than pursuing an unknown future. So keeping those values, which again is those old beliefs, is more valuable than releasing it and, trusting that there is a result at the end that I want. And so are you going to give me that result that I want, or am I making a decision on my side that I am going to get that result no matter what?
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the difference in belief, you see the difference in conviction. When I went to medical school, I started to doubt, if I wanted to finish. And so I was really questioning myself. I was really depressed. And I had actually gone and talked to a counselor, and she said, well, why don't you just finish out the rest of the year? She's like, after that, then reassess, and if you really don't want to do it, you can do something else. And I think having that freedom, just her saying you can do something else, at least made me feel like I had options. So maybe you don't always necessarily have to know. Because that was the same thing I say with my mentor coach. When I first started doing her program for weight loss, I didn't know I was going to lose weight. I didn't even know how much I was going to lose. I don't even think I cared. I said, I don't care. I just want to see. I want to see if I can really lose weight with this. It wasn't intentional. I didn't have a weight loss goal. And so sometimes if the belief isn't there, we can still be curious. Somebody may feel really confident that, oh yeah, I know I can lose 2 pounds, or I know I can lose 5 pounds, or I can lose 10 pounds. But then when it gets to 20 pounds, your brain is like, what's happening? We have to do the mindset work, because I can feel confident that I can make, $10,000. But then when we start to stretch, can I make 20,000? Can I make 30 or 40,000? That's taking me beyond my comfort zone, beyond my level of belief. And so then I have to grow that level of belief. But ultimately, it's belief. It's about belief.
I think that's very universal. I feel like you have big dreams, but they often feel unattainable because they're so far away. And that's why you kind of have to focus on the individual steps that will lead to that thing. So, like you said about like 20 pounds sounds unattainable, but like 2 pounds and 5 pounds, those are each of the steps and they add up. I think looking at the smaller picture is sometimes beneficial, and sometimes people struggle to do that. You said many deaths that you observe in your forensic pathologist role are often the result of the choices that person made. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that and how that correlates to your coaching.
Well, I think we as human beings have a tendency towards negativity. And that's actually a survival mechanism because it's more likely when our ancestors heard something shaking in the bush and they ran away, the likelihood that it was like a saber-toothed tiger coming to attack them was really high. That was their survival benefit. The one who could run away the fastest, the one who heard it earliest and ran, survived to live another day. And so that fear mechanism is ingrained in our brain. But we still have that more primitive brain inside of all of us. And we will tend to default again to what we know, to what we learned, what we saw our parents do, what we saw in what we've seen in our culture to decide our future. We're living in a past pattern that was familiar, and so we continue to carry it forward. If my parents, went to the bar every weekend, high likelihood I'll do that same behavior. The book I wrote called Zombie Effects: How Good Kids Get Hooked on Drugs and How to Help. I wrote it for parents to help them to understand how their vulnerability and honesty and open communication with their children is actually transformative. But so many times parents feel a lot of shame and feel very guilty if they see their own children making the choices that they made and using drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, there isn't that communication that takes place because, again, we are helping somebody navigate new beliefs, new emotions, new actions to develop a different outcome. Many times, what I see in the deaths are people making choices based on old and past beliefs, which ultimately often shortens their life, which is unfortunate. And so in coaching, we are demonstrating how different outcomes can result from different beliefs, new beliefs. But as human beings, we need support to help us move into and embody those new beliefs.
I think my last question will be kind of similar to what I asked in the last interview I did at the end, which was if you had anything you've either learned in the past year or so, a mindset or a mantra of some kind that you've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, there's a book that I just finished reading. It's called Living Untethered by Michael Singer. And he talks about mantra. And it's funny, he's kind of on the Buddhist tradition. And he says there's like a saying that you can, Omi Ani Pa, or in a foreign language. But he says, like, if you don't know the language, you can just say, I am always fine. So I can say that I am always fine. I am always fine. And just doing that sometimes when I have to enter into something that's scary, and even making a cold call. Now, there's something that I just learned, which is called positive intelligence, where we just get inside of our body. So you can like rub your fingers together and just really pay attention to the sensation of your body. That's one thing too that calms your nervous system. I give this example, which is kind of funny to me. The church that I go to, we had just lost our pastor, and they wanted to do something nice, obviously, because we were, grieving. And so they had donuts. It was like a couple of years ago. And so I was still pretty new on the weight loss journey. So I remember walking up to the table. I looked at the donuts. Yeah, I just wanted to see what was there. And all of a sudden, this thought came: I am so thankful that I am someone who doesn't eat donuts. So I went to the service and then I came back out again. I walked up to the donut table again and I looked at the donuts, and that thought came in: I'm so thankful I am someone who doesn't eat donuts. I know that is like the funniest thing, but yet it works. And I always say, be careful what you say to yourself because you are listening. Just like we tell ourselves the negative things, which maybe it's the survival mechanism, but we don't have to believe that. And we can start to tell ourselves things that we do want to believe. Our words are powerful. And just like we can use our words to tear a person down, to tear ourselves down, we can also use our words to build others up and to build ourselves up.
People always say, like, actions speak louder than words, which I think in some cases is true, but if someone says something to you enough times, you're gonna start to believe it, and I think the same goes for what you say to yourself, for sure, which a lot of people don't even realize what their inner voice is telling them because it's just so ingrained.
Abnormal.
People don't realize how much having a constant negative voice can affect them, oftentimes more than other people's words can affect them,
Yeah.
which is
Like if
what I was
other
trying to say.
people spoke to them as negatively as they speak to themselves, they would never tolerate it. But yet they can
Right,
say harshest things to themselves and don't even think twice about it.
right.
But your body's listening. You are listening.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to talk to me,
Well, thank you. Yeah.
and I think I've come away with a lot of new perspectives, and I just think your career is so unique in the combination of things that you do, and we often don't realize how these things can be connected. So yeah, it was nice meeting you, and thank you.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed speaking with you and hearing your perspective on things. So I really enjoyed it.